Harry should or would be happier living in Montana doing his occasional, he doesn't say occasional, but I'm going to say occasional charity work and, a life of service. When I'm not stoned, I like to sort of pretend that I'm not pretending. I really enjoy being a prince.
What can King Charles actually do about Harry and Meghan's royal brand cash machine? More than you'd think, and the answer is backed by real legal history. Lady Colin Campbell, someone who has spent decades studying the legal and historical framework of the British monarchy, breaks it down with authority. The options on the table are real, they're constitutional, and they're being deliberately ignored. Start with the most basic move, removing Harry and Meghan from the royal family's official website. Right now, they're still listed there under their Sussex titles, with links pointing straight to their commercial businesses. That listing implies royal approval. It implies the institution is okay with what they're doing. It's not a legal document, it's a communications tool. The king can change it tomorrow if he wants to. But the excuse for not doing it? That it would be a provocation. That Harry and Meghan might feel attacked. That the headlines wouldn't be worth it. Sound familiar? It's the same logic that's been used every single time the palace has done nothing. And here's the problem with that. Harry and Meghan have already shown they'll call any royal action persecution, no matter what. So if provocation is the reason to stay frozen, then provocation becomes a permanent force field against any response ever. The website fix isn't dramatic. It doesn't strip titles. It doesn't touch the line of succession. It simply tells the truth these are not working royals. Nothing they do carries royal endorsement. Any royal adjacent glow in their business deals?
And Meghan have thrown down the gauntlet. They have declared that they are half in, half out. And who doesn't like it will just have to suck it up. They have said it privately, they have said it publicly, they have used slightly different words, but that's the meaning of what they have said.
Not approved, not co-signed, not royal. Now the bigger question, the titles themselves. Campbell points to a precedent most people have forgotten. King George V, back in 1917, redrew the entire map of who could hold princely rank and the style of Royal Highness by order in council. No parliament, no lengthy legal process. Just a royal decree. That single move wiped out the princely rank of multiple extended family members, including Prince Alastair of Connaught, son of one of Queen Victoria's most beloved sons. That precedent matters. It means King Charles could issue an order in council today declaring that the Royal Highness style and the title of prince can be withdrawn from individuals who commercially exploit their royal status in ways that damage the monarchy. The legal tool exists, the historical blueprint exists, the documented behavior across their public ventures gives the justification. What's missing is the will to do it. And that's where it gets personal. Queen Elizabeth saw exactly this situation with Prince Andrew. She acted swiftly, decisively, publicly stripping him of his Royal Highness style, regardless of her private feelings as his mother. She separated the woman from the crown and did what the institution required.
It should be removed from the royal family website. They really should. Of course, they've not been so far because basically there are a host of reasons that the public doesn't want to accept.
Charles, according to Campbell, hasn't shown that same ability to separate the personal from the institutional. The son he loves and the institutional crisis that son represents feel like one and the same to him. And as long as they do, the palace stays frozen, the website stays up, and the titles stay intact. Original word count to 530 words. William doesn't have the same problem his father does, not even close. The relationship between William and Harry isn't about parental love anymore. It's cold. Charlotte Griffith has described it plainly as hate. For William, the personal and the institutional calculation point in exactly the same direction. Harry doesn't belong at the coronation. The titles should eventually go, and the half-in half-out arrangement needs to be formally shut down. What Charles feels as a heartbreaking choice between duty and fatherhood, William will treat as a straightforward institutional decision when his time comes. No hesitation, no sentiment, just the institution.
Harry could be stripped of his Royal Highness, and Harry could be stripped of his princely rank. And it could be done very simply. The king could simply declare that hereafter, and it could simply be something that he can just do. He's allowed to do it. He's the fount of all honours.
And the pressure is building. The Australian tour, the blueprint announcement, the children's titles, the Sussex.com domain linked directly from the royal website Harry and Meghan have been throwing down one gauntlet after another. Campbell is clear about what this means. Harry and Meghan never truly accepted the Sandringham Agreement. They went along with it for as long as it worked for them, and then they walked right past it like it never existed. The challenge has been issued openly. The question now is whether the institution finally responds or keeps absorbing the hits. Then comes the Dan Wakeford confirmation, and it adds real weight to what people outside the mainstream media have been saying for years. The finances are under pressure. The goals have split wide open. Harry wants Montana. Meghan wants Lauren Sanchez-level empire building. Those two visions don't fit in the same house. Campbell's point about Wakeford is sharp. He's now saying what she and others in the alternative commentary space have been saying for a long time.
He could also most likely make an order in council that any member of the royal family who has a peerage is not allowed to use it for commercial purposes without reference to the Lord Chamberlain or whomever.
The pattern is always the same. The honest read comes first from people outside the approved media bubble, gets dismissed as speculation or bias, and then gets confirmed later when someone inside the system changes their value calculation. Wakeford is now independent. He needs his audience's trust more than the couple's access. So the truth becomes available. Now, the dynamic Campbell describes the cold-blooded partner who pulls the emotionally dependent one back whenever they drift too far. This is the framework that makes two things true at the same time. The relationship is deeply unhappy, and there's still a strong pull keeping them together. These aren't contradictions, they're exactly what a narcissistic dependent relationship looks like. The dependent partner suffers because his needs go unmet. The other partner has no real investment in his happiness, but knows that losing him would be costly.
He is not going to do what the Queen did with Prince Andrew, because as soon as the Epstein thing became the issue that it became, she immediately prevented him from using Royal Highness, made him resign from practically everything.
So the cycle of drift and pull continues, never resolving, never ending, just maintaining. And this dynamic has direct commercial consequences. Harry's goals and Meghan's goals have separated. He wants quiet, she wants scale. But the commercial operation needs both of them, and specifically needs Harry's name, his royal adjacency, his institutional connections. The moment that adjacency disappears through title revocation or genuine separation, the operation loses its most valuable asset. Meghan's calculation therefore requires Harry to stay visible, and stay institutionally connected, regardless of what Harry himself actually wants. The pullback mechanism serves the brand as much as the relationship. The upcoming return to Britain for Invictus fits this perfectly. Harry's presence delivers exactly what the UK phase of the commercial operation needs: royal proximity, military credibility, and the kind of approved visibility money can't buy.
He is more wishy-washy, and I think he is backboned enough. But the strategy, whether it's cruel or not, of giving them enough rope to hang themselves with has been working very well.
This coming summer will reveal something important: whether Harry's personal desire to reconnect with his family can actually be separated from Meghan's commercial need for his royal presence on British soil. Those are two very different things, and the difference matters. Meanwhile, the institution sits frozen, The website is still live. The titles are still in the candle descriptions. The Sandringham agreement is still being ignored without a single consequence. Charles is still rolling with the punches, and William is still waiting for the authority to act differently. The gauntlet has been thrown, and the institution is still deciding whether to pick it up.
Random with that needs to go the occasional, shall we say, demonstration from him that this is unacceptable. And just freezing them out isn't enough.
Campbell's deep dive into the historical bill of pains and penalties is revealing, but not for the reasons you might expect. The mechanism was used in 1820 when King George IV tried to block Queen Caroline from holding her status and title as Queen. The bill passed the House of Lords, but never even made it to the Commons. It was never implemented. And the damage it caused? Enormous. It made George IV look vindictive toward a woman he had already treated badly, generated massive public sympathy for Caroline, and ended up hurting the monarchy far more than the behavior it was meant to punish. The lesson from 1,820 maps directly onto today's situation. The more aggressive and formal the palace's response to Harry and Meghan's conduct, the more it risks fueling exactly the victimhood narrative that is their most commercially valuable product. Harry has been anticipating institutional persecution since the Oprah interview. The framework is already built and ready. Any action the palace takes becomes evidence of the racism and cruelty, he says, drove them out. The bigger the action, the more material they have. This is the trap Charles is navigating. And it's why the smarter play is a series of quiet, specific, consistent moves, updating the website, issuing an order in council, sending the occasional formal signal that the conduct crosses a line, rather than one dramatic gesture that hands them the documentary they're already mentally filming. The order in council is the right tool precisely because it is administrative, not punitive. It doesn't punish Harry as a person.
Because the relationship is different. Parents always want to hope that their children will come right. Siblings understand that who they thought loved them, once they cast you in the role of enemy, it's because they are your enemy.
It simply clarifies the constitutional boundaries of what the institution extends to people who are not working royals, operating within the institutional framework. There is a legal distinction between stripping a title as punishment and withdrawing a designation because circumstances have changed. The 1917 precedent established clearly that the latter sits entirely within the sovereign's authority. The conduct of the Australian tour, the commercial exploitation, the Bondi Beach listing, the children's titles dropped into product descriptions. Those are the changed circumstances that provide the legitimate basis for that clarification. The dukedom, the earldom, and the barony are harder cases, as Campbell acknowledges. These are peerage titles with their own distinct legal framework, more complex than what an order in council can address. But the Royal Highness designation and the princely style, those can be handled more simply, and they're the elements carrying the most commercial weight. Prince Archie of Sussex in a candle description hits differently than just Archie of Sussex. The princely designation is doing commercial work. Withdrawing it from individuals operating outside the institutional framework would directly cut into that exploitation. So, will Charles act? The consistent pattern of his reign already answers that question. He understands what needs to be done. This isn't a failure of understanding. It's a failure of will. The specific ability to compartmentalize that Queen Elizabeth had, that William has, that Charles simply does not possess. She was publicly queen, regardless of her private feelings. Charles is publicly king and privately father at the same time, and those two roles keep contaminating each other. The institution has been paying the price ever since. William's position is structurally different, and that difference is everything. When William becomes king, the parental relationship is gone. What remains is a sibling relationship that Charlotte Griffith, using her specific access, has described plainly as hate. For William, the personal and institutional calculations don't pull in opposite directions. They point the same way. William has no parental inhibition holding him back. He's not waiting for his brother to come around. He has reached a settled, clear-eyed position about who Harry is and what Harry's conduct means, and that position is fully compatible with the institutional action Charles keeps deferring. No hesitation, no sentiment, just the institution. This is exactly why the summer's events carry such structural weight. If Charles acts now removes the couple from the royal website, issues the order in council, sends the formal signal that half in, half out is not a permitted arrangement, he shapes what William inherits. He reduces the burden on William's early reign and handles the situation before it calcifies further. If Charles continues to do nothing, William inherits the full weight of years of institutional non-response. And cleaning that up will be far more disruptive for having been left so long. The give them enough rope strategy, the idea that patient non-engagement allows Harry and Meghan to show the world exactly who they are, day by day has worked in one specific sense. Public opinion has shifted dramatically, from the enthusiastic reception of the 2018 Australian tour to a Roy Morgan poll showing 81% disapproval in 2026. The rope has done damage. But here's the problem: the damage has landed on their reputation, not on their access. The royal website still lists them. The titles are still in the candle descriptions. The rope tightened around their public image, while their commercial access to the royal brand stayed wide open. Campbell's recommendation is precise, pair the patient strategy with occasional formal institutional signals. Remove them from the website. Issue the order in council. Make it formally clear through official channels that the commercial exploitation of royal designations is not consented to, not approved, and carries consequences. At minimum, a statement that no future conduct by Harry or Meghan should be read as institutional endorsement. At maximum, an order in council withdrawing the princely designations entirely. Short of full peerage revocation, that is the strongest available move. The gauntlet has been thrown. The tools exist. The historical precedent is clear. The constitutional mechanism is available. The documented conduct provides the justification. What's missing is the political will in a king who is seriously unwell, whose love for his son keeps contaminating the institutional calculation, and who watches as the candle descriptions go live, the blueprint gets announced, and the website listing persists unchanged. The summer will arrive. Invictus preparations will bring Harry to Britain. The review will produce some outcome, and the institution will have shown through action or deliberate inaction what it has decided about the gauntlet that has been lying at its feet since the Australian tour announced itself as the blueprint for a permanent, half-in, half-out future. The tools are there, the will remains the question. And the Wakeford Vindication dimension of Campbell's commentary deserves more than a passing mention. What Wakeford's reporting validates isn't just the financial picture, the depleted resources, the declining fees, the tightening runway. It validates the entire interpretive framework that outside voices have been applying to this situation for years. The diverged goals. The commercial operation requiring Harry's institutional proximity regardless of his personal preferences, the observation that the relationship is held together not by shared vision but by a calculated pullback mechanism. These frameworks were already in the public record long before Wakeford published a original word count, to 480 words. These frameworks weren't pulled from thin air, they were built from observable evidence, from specific patterns in public appearances, from body language at the retreat and the rugby match, from footage that went viral for all the wrong reasons, and from sources who described the experience as giving them serious emotional distress. The alternative commentary space put all of this together from what was visible and got dismissed as speculation and bias for doing it. Then Wakeford, with the internal access that outside commentators never had arrived at the exact same conclusions, using insider sources. Two completely different routes, same destination, same picture. This convergence is the pattern that defines how the honest record always emerges. It starts outside the approved media ecosystem, built from observable evidence by people with no access arrangements. Then it gets confirmed from the inside when those access arrangements change and the truth becomes commercially available. The confirmation produces the vindication, and suddenly the audiences who only trust approved sources can finally see what others saw years earlier. The vindication is real, but it's delayed. And that delay has a very real cost, because while the honest record was being slowly assembled, confirmed, and eventually vindicated, the commercial exploitation didn't pause for a single day. The operation kept running. The brand kept expanding. The institutional adjacency kept being leveraged. And nobody in the palace did a thing to stop it. Think about what that actually means in practical terms. Every month, the website stays live with their Sussex listing. Every product description that carries a princely title, every commercial venture that benefits from the implied royal association, that's value being extracted from an institution that has not consented to provide it. It's not abstract, it's not symbolic. It translates directly into brand equity, into commercial partnerships, into the kind of global recognition that's still in the product copy. The website still lists the couple, the blueprint is still being deployed openly, confidently, without any institutional consequence whatsoever. And the king has the tools to address every single one of these issues through mechanisms that require no parliamentary process and don't hand the couple the dramatic persecution narrative they've been waiting to deploy. Moment anyone moves against them, he is still rolling with the punches. The summer is scheduled, the blueprint is announced, the gauntlet is on the floor, and it has been on the floor long enough to gather dust. The institution is still deciding, still weighing, still hoping that patience alone will be enough. But patience without consequence isn't a strategy, it's a permission slip. Every day of inaction sends a signal. Not just to Harry and Meghan, but to every future royal who might consider testing the boundaries of what the institution will tolerate. The signal being sent right now is that the boundaries are negotiable, that the designations can be commercially exploited without consequence, and that the institution will absorb the damage indefinitely rather than act. William is watching all of this, and William is waiting. The tools will absolutely still be there when it becomes his decision to make, but the situation he inherits will be harder to clean up for every year it's been left unaddressed. The calcification that happens through years of institutional non-response doesn't just affect public perception. It affects legal positioning, commercial relationships, and the practical difficulty of unwinding arrangements that have been tacitly permitted to operate for an extended period. Now, Campbell raises one more dimension that cuts deeper than most people realize: institutional competence. And this one is uncomfortable because it suggests the problem isn't just political will. It may also be institutional ignorance at the advisory level. If the advisors currently in Charles's ear don't know that an ordering council can withdraw the princely designation, or don't understand the 1917 precedent that places this clearly and unambiguously within the sovereign's authority, then the tools go unused, not because of a deliberate choice, but because nobody in the room knows they exist. That is a different kind of failure, and in some ways a more alarming one. Think about how that happens. The palace has modernized. It has brought in advisors from outside the traditional royal system: communications professionals, strategic consultants, people with backgrounds in corporate reputation management and media relations. These are skilled people in their fields. But the royal system is not a corporation. It is not a media company. It operates through constitutional mechanisms that have centuries of specific precedent behind them, and those mechanisms are not common knowledge even among highly educated and highly capable professionals. The solution those advisors reach for becomes the bill of pains and penalties, the dramatic, heavy-handed, politically catastrophic mechanism that George IV tried and failed to deploy against Queen Caroline in 1820. They reach for it because that's what they know from general constitutional history. It's the famous example. It's the one that shows up in textbooks. What they don't know are the more targeted, more proportionate, more administratively clean tools that royal prerogative actually provides. An order in council is not dramatic. It doesn't generate the kind of headlines that feed the victimhood narrative. It doesn't look like persecution. It looks like administration because it is administration. It is the sovereign clarifying, through a well-established constitutional mechanism, the boundaries of what the institution extends to individuals operating outside the institutional framework. It has been done before, where the decisions are being made, and Campbell's frustration, barely contained beneath the characteristic precision of her commentary, is that this knowledge is not reliably present, that the people who have been brought in to modernize the institution identify the clean, proportionate, legally sound response to what is currently happening. They are the people who can walk into the advisory meeting and say, here is the tool, here is the precedent, here is why it works, and here is why it doesn't give Harry and Meghan the documentary material they're waiting for. The people who don't know the system reach for the sledgehammer when a scalpel was always available. And the difference between those two instruments in this specific context is the difference between a constitutional clarification that quietly withdraws a commercial asset and a punitive spectacle that validates every claim the couple has ever made about institutional persecution. The stakes of that difference cannot be overstated. Harry has spent years constructing a narrative framework in which the institution is the villain, in which every action taken against him is evidence of the racism and cruelty that he says drove his family out. That framework is commercially valuable. It is the foundation of the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, the memoir, and everything that followed. It is also strategically ready to be activated the moment the institution makes a move dramatic enough to feed it. A bill of pains and penalties feeds it. A dramatic public title stripping feeds it. A high-profile legal confrontation feeds it. An order in council, administrative, precedented, constitutionally clean, does not feed it in the same way. It is precisely the kind of measure that is hard to dramatize, hard to present as persecution, and hard to build a documentary around, which is exactly why it is the right tool for this specific moment. The tools are there. The precedent is crystal clear. The situation is thoroughly documented across the Australian tour. The blueprint announcement, the candle descriptions, the website listing, and everything that preceded it. The justification exists. The mechanism exists. The historical authority exists. The only questions that remain are whether the right people are finally in the room when the decision gets made, and whether the king's love for his son will continue to override the institutional calculation that every other observer can see clearly. William is waiting. The summer is coming. The blueprint is being executed in plain sight. And somewhere in the palace, a decision is either being made or being avoided, and the difference between those two outcomes will define what William inherits, what the institution looks like in a decade, and whether the honest record that outside voices assembled and Wakeford confirmed ever actually translates into institutional action. That is the question Campbell's commentary leaves hanging, not as a failure of analysis, but as an honest acknowledgement that the analysis can identify the tools, clarify the precedents, and document the conduct. What it cannot do is supply the will. If this breakdown had you seeing the bigger picture, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We go deep on the stories the mainstream won't touch. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one.